The New York Times estimates that Harris will lose the national popular vote by about 1.5 points, a first for Democrats since 2004. Global inflation is something that was hard to shut down, but there were other issues that Democrats flubbed, which inflamed the opposition and depressed their base. I'm going to talk about them here because it's the right time to do a postmortem. But to avoid appearing to have 20/20 hindsight, I should say that I have noted each of these mistakes at the time, often provoking angry responses from the left. The first big error was the Biden administration's blindness to the collapse of the immigration system and the chaos at the border. An asylum system that was meant for a small number of persecuted individuals was being used by millions to gain legal entry. Instead of shutting it down, liberals branded anyone protesting as heartless and racist. They missed a massive shift in American public opinion in just a few years. In 2020, the percentage of Americans who wanted to decrease immigration was just 28%. By this year, it was 55%. When Kamala Harris went on The View and was asked how she would have differed from Biden, instead of basically saying nothing different, she should have said, "I would have shut down the border early and hard." The second error was an overzealous misuse of law to punish Trump. The most egregious of the cases pursued was Alvin Bragg's one in New York, one that even he was once skeptical of, but was reportedly pressured by some on the left into pursuing. Some cases, like the Georgia one, were legitimate, but the host of them piled on in rapid succession gave the impression that the legal system was being weaponized to get Trump. It confirmed to his base what it had always believed, that overeducated urban liberals were hypocrites, happy to bend rules and norms when it suited their purposes. It's worth noting that in this week's election, a CNN exit poll found that among those who believe that democracy in the U.S. is threatened, a majority supported Trump. Lawfare turned Trump from being a loser into a victim, and as his indictments grew, his campaign contributions surged and his poll numbers solidified. The final error is a more diffuse one, the dominance of identity politics on the left, which made it push for all kinds of DEI policies that largely came out of the urban academic bubble, but alienated many mainstream voters. There's an irony in claiming to be pro-Latino by insisting that people use the term Latinx, only to discover that Latinos themselves think the word is weird. This kind of obsession made Democrats view people too much through their ethnic or racial or gender identity, and it made them miss, for example, that working-class Latinos were moving toward Trump perhaps because they were socially conservative, or liked his macho rhetoric, or even agreed with his hardline stance on immigration. One of Trump's most effective ads on trans issues had a tagline:
"Kamala is for they, them. President Trump is for you."
The problem is much deeper than simply one about nouns and pronouns. The entire focus on identity has morphed into something deeply illiberal, judging people by the color of their skin rather than the content of their character. Similarly, university speech codes and cancel culture have become ways that the left censors or restricts that most cherished of liberal ideas, freedom of speech. One simple way to think about the lessons of this election is that liberals cannot achieve liberal goals, however virtuous, by illiberal means.